What's going on, everybody, and welcome to episode 109 of the Book Binge, where I'm kind of a little bit flustered at the moment. My PC was doing some really weird things today, and after like 2 full restarts and doing some other stuff, it's finally like working normal again. So I'm just kind of recording this video and the next one just like right now. Going to get them done as soon as possible so that I don't, come around to this tomorrow when it will be nearly too late to record these videos. And so that's what's going on today, and I apologize if I hit the microphone. The microphone's in a sort of new spot with the way that things are with the setup at the moment, so I'm getting used to it being in this position instead of here. So anyways, that's all I really need to say. I have a crazy month planned out for the reading. In fact, I actually just changed some of my plans for the month this morning. This morning on the day that I'm recording is September 30th, by the way. So yeah, that's things are a little bit crazy. Either way, let's go ahead and talk about what I read last month before we get into what's going on this month. Last month I did read the entirety of The Dragon Reborn. Feels good to say that I read a whole book in a month at this point. After August, I continued, I think, 3 books and didn't finish any, and didn't have a book of the month. That was pretty upsetting. So The Dragon Reborn, I did read all this month. If you want to know more, I did do reading diaries for this book, as well as a quick spoiler-free, like, general thought and wrap-up on all 3 of these first books in the Wheel of Time that I did. So you can check that out if you want to know more, because I've spent plenty of time talking about these books so far on the channel. Next up, I did finish my reread of Howling Dark by Christopher Ruocchio's second book in the Sun Eater, which kind of feels really weird timing-wise, because I read this book in September of 2022 the first time, and here it is, the end of September 2023. I read the bulk of this book pretty much exactly a year later, so that feels just kind of weird to me. But I did get this book finished. I decided to plow through it instead of starting another book which I had planned to read over the month, and which I kind of should have read over this month, but I'm ultimately not going to get around to yet. Next up, I did read something that has indeed been the so-called secret project that I've been referring to a few times up to this point, and that is actually the artwork without the title is actually my phone background, so I'll just go ahead and show that. It's The Dregs of Empire and Other Stories, the Anderida version of The Dregs of Empire and Tales of the Sun Eater, Volume 3 by Christopher Ruocchio. Now, I was very privileged to have the opportunity to be able to proofread, not copy edit this one, but proofread the Anderida version to check for, inconsistencies and obviously typos and the like as well, but also just check out the typeset and stuff like that, make sure that things look good with the edition. And I did get through, well, as of today, I have not quite finished The Dregs of Empire, but I am going to be finished with it by the time this video comes out. And yes, this version of the book is actually going to be announced by the time the video comes out as well. Thank goodness I asked Ruocchio beforehand, before I talked about it, to make sure that I could actually talk about it this time around, whereas I wasn't before. But yeah, that is what I've been working on over the majority of the month. And speaking of the word majority, that was rather ironic timing. I did continue Majority by Abby Goldsmith, that arc that I was provided at one point in time. I'll show that as well here too. It's in the corner there, while the focus with, there we go, that looks a little bit better. I was hoping to get through all of part 2 before the end of the month, but then I actually got the PDF for Tales, or for Dregs of Empire and Other Stories, so that became the priority, because that one has a deadline for me to finish up my read through of. So that is basically what last month entailed, although the Silmarillion is also back there. I read a few chapters of that, nothing really super additional to say, just that I'm happy that more familiar names are actually starting to come out of the woodworks in that one. And yeah, it's actually going to be on pause now until, well, at this point, probably December, potentially even next year. I doubt I'll be able to get back to it in November, just based off of the timing of stuff, but we'll see. I'll, keep you updated as we go along. In terms of book of the month, I want to say Dregs of Empire, even though I haven't finished it yet, but because I haven't finished it yet, I'm not going to, just because of cheating reasons. It would feel a little bit wrong to do that, and also because, holy cow, that story is, well, if you've read Sun Eater, you know how dismal it can get at times. That story is a doozy for sure, but my actual book of the month this month is going to be The Dragon Reborn. It is my favorite of the 3 Wheel of Time books so far. That's all that I'm going to say about it here. If you want to know more about why or what worked for me and whatnot, like I said, you can watch all those videos, but I really, really enjoyed these books. If you heard me talking about the first two, it's a pretty high bar already. I really enjoyed the first two. This one I enjoyed even more. So that was my book of the month. But let's talk about what crazy plans I have for October, because they are indeed very crazy. First of all, we're going to go through my spooky season reads. So these are in one sense my primary reads for the month, or at least my top priority as far as things go. I'm not entirely sure what order I'm going to read these 3, but I do have 3 books that were gifted to me over the course of last year. I'm pretty sure they were all gifted to me last year. All by the same author, Stephen Graham Jones, the first one of these being Night of the Mannequins. Now this one should be, even for me, a 1 or 2 morning read. I read pretty slow, but this thing is barely 130 pages, and the font is pretty big, the margins are rather sizable, and the book itself is rather small as well. Let me compare this to the Dragon Reborn hardcover, which I was just holding. This is the size of the book. Like, it is tiny. So I'll be able to get through this in 1 or 2 mornings pretty easily. I know it's not his most well-regarded work. It's also not his... even amongst the people who I know who have read and enjoy Stephen Graham Jones for the most part, it's one that's like a little bit goofier, but, you know, I'll go into it with that in mind. Speaking of goofy, the next one will be Flush Boy, a similarly very small one. This one was, I'm pretty sure Patrick gifted me this one. Celine, I'm pretty sure, gifted me this one. If I'm incorrect on those rememberings, I sincerely apologize. But yeah, Flush Boy is similarly small. I'll probably also be able to get through this in just 1 weekend, 2, maybe 3 mornings or something like that. So that's what I'm going to try to plan to do there. And the third Stephen Graham Jones book is pretty controversial is not quite the right term, but one that has a very mixed opinion, is The Only Good Indians. There are plenty of people who really like this. There are plenty of people who think it's like one of the worst books like ever written, period. We'll see what I think about it when I get to it this month. This is the longest of the 3 books. It's actually more of a normal length. It's right around 300 pages. Font is a little bit more normal size as well, so this one might take me, you know, a little bit longer than these other 2. These other 2 I might be able to get through in 1 weekend. If I really try to, this one will probably take me 2, depending on how things go. But yeah, that's basically my spooky season plans, is actually getting through these 3 horror books that were gifted to me. Thank you to the people who gifted me them being Celine for Night of the Mannequins, and then Patrick for both Flush Boy and The Only Good Indians, I'm pretty sure. And then I have a 4th very small book to read this month. It's not spooky season related per se, but for some reason, when I was planning a little read along for it, I decided that October just kind of seemed right for the planning of it anyway, so I decided to plan it for October. Originally, I was joking about October next year in 2023 or something like that, but then in light of the news of the author's passing, I decided, you know, maybe I should just give it a shot this year and you know, give some of my friends who disliked it the first time they read it a chance to reread it, and, you know, see if they feel any different about it. That is The Road by Cormac McCarthy. Now, amongst my friends, I don't know if I've ever really mentioned this on the channel, I've not been particularly fond of any of the quotes of McCarthy's that I've read. I just don't like the writing style, you know, the whole throwing punctuation to the wind and lack of quotation marks and kind of run-on sentences, you know, the complete disregard for the English language, or the written English language, essentially. But I knew that if there was any McCarthy book that I was going to give a shot, it was going to be The Road. And this is for a couple reasons. One of them is because even, I know that even some other people who don't really like McCarthy generally still enjoyed this book, but also because I have heard it compared a couple of times to The Last of Us, which is my favorite game of all time. Now, I'm obviously not going to go into this expecting something like The Last of Us, nor am I going to expect it to be as brilliant as The Last of Us, because, well, nothing will ever be that brilliant ever again, period. Um, but I will go into it kind of, that's part of what made me interested. I was like, okay, well, if it's somewhat similar to The Last of Us in some ways, with, the whole parental sort of relationship thing going on in a post-apocalyptic world, maybe I'll go ahead and give it a shot. So I am going to give this a shot in October, probably once I'm done with these other 3 books. We'll see. I have a video diary planned for this, so probably do a spoiler talk on it as well as a review, both of those to come this month, so it might be one of the earlier books that I try to get through. We'll kind of see what happens. Those are essentially the confirmed reads for October, what I really do plan to get through, and I'll actually feel like a great reader for once. For once in the last few months, getting through 4 whole books, even though they're absolutely tiny. 4 whole books will kind of feel good after August of not finishing a single book. But I will include some if I have time, things, but I should also include Tales of the Sun Eater Volume 3 as well with that Antarctica collection, because since I am doing the proofread, I am doing a reread of Tales Volume 3 with that, just, to make sure that it still looks good there and catch maybe any extraneous stuff that I missed the first time. There shouldn't be anything too major that I missed the first time, but we'll see. We still gotta go through that. But then even once I'm finished with the Tales 3 reread, I was initially planning on going ahead and finally starting Return to Adan by Philip Chase this month, but then I decided, well, it's a really big book, and I've got these small books that I really want and need to get done in October. I'm going to go ahead and push Return to Adan until a little bit later in the year as well. I'm really sorry about that, especially since I got that copy sent to me by Philip and got it a couple weeks before release date. I feel bad for pushing it back, but it makes the most sense. I need to give it a little bit more of its own time and its own space, kind of like I did for, kind of like I didn't do for The Prophet of Adan, because that one, getting through that was a disaster. Not because of the quality of the book, but because of my reading schedule in generally, June and July. If you watch those videos, yeah, it was a mess. But yeah, otherwise, the if I have time portion of this month is going to be rereading these 2 collections for Antarctica, the Lesser Devil and Other Stories, and Queen Amid Ashes and Other Stories, doing my rereads of those, doing my voluntary projects that I'm doing for Christopher with these. Yeah, since they are all pretty short, and the next projects that I'm needing to get to with them are Queen Amid Ashes is the next one that I imminently need to get to. That's a very short story. In the Antarctica collection, Dregs of Empire is 330 pages. Queen Amid Ashes in this collection is 150, maybe 160. Yeah, it's 150 pages in this collection, so it's tiny. With that being said, yeah, that is the plans for otherwise in October. If I get through these, or if I have time to read something else that isn't these, maybe if I want to do something quick in between them, I'm going to do these short stories and novellas as well this month. We'll see if I get through them all in October. Probably not, but maybe if I, decide not to game a whole lot, and especially over that 5-day weekend I have for my birthday in the middle of the month, anything's kind of possible. We'll see what happens, but that is all that I have for this video. Well, maybe I should say I'll try to continue Majority by Abby Goldsmith if I have time this month as well. I should also try to prioritize that because it was an arc. But I have too many other projects going on at the moment that I'm not going to guarantee it. Either way, like I said, I got a busy month ahead of me. Thank you guys for watching this video. I'll be back in the next one. Today's Tuesday when this comes out. This Thursday will be a discussion that I did with Nicole at Nicole's Bookish Nook here on YouTube. So if you want to check that out, I would be grateful for that. But next week will also be, what even is next week, actually? Yeah, next week will be my summer book haul. I have all the books right over here. That's the video that I'm going to record, as soon as I'm done recording this one. So yeah, if you want to check that out, I would also appreciate that. Thank you guys again for watching. I'll be back in the next video.